Romans 1:28-32. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They're gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree, that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them.
Welcome back to another episode, guys.
Yeah.
Two guys in the Bible. My name's C.A. Middleton. I'm the youth pastor at Lake Athens Baptist Church.
I'm Cody Coleman, pastor of Parkview Reformed Baptist Church, Athens, Texas.
Welcome back.
Yeah, here we are.
How are you?
Good.
It's cold.
Cold, and Alabama lost on Saturday.
God is good.
Not family.
The Cowboys lost Sunday.
But the Seahawks won last night.
Are you a Seahawks fan?
When you grow up in Seattle and they sell all your teams, you got to be somebody.
I like Seahawks, all right. They got a good squad.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That's unimportant.
Yeah, it is cold here in East Texas.
20 degrees.
It's 20 and the wind's blowing like 20.
That's why CA's got his parka on.
Yes, I'm not taking it off till June. I'm not used to this kind of stuff.
I love it.
It's November.
I love it.
We might get this a few times in like January, February. We usually don't get this cold November.
Climate change must be right.
It's the cow farts. The cows are farting,
Oh.
and that's why it's so cold.
We should laugh at these things because they're so ridiculous. I think that's what the prophet Elijah was doing at Mount Carmel, right?
Yeah.
He was like he's mocking them and laughing at their ridiculousness.
Yeah.
That's how ridiculous some of this stuff is. Why don't you share with them some of the things that we came across this week?
Yeah. So we don't really we don't have really a set agenda this week. We came across some articles this week, and I wanted to share just some of the titles. I might read a little bit of them with you. We'll start with this one. A group of 11,000 scientists calls for global population reduction to combat climate change.
A really nice way of saying they are full of murder, right? That's just a really politically correct way of saying we're going to murder a bunch of people.
Yeah.
To reduce the population to save the environment.
That's exactly what they're calling for. I mean, they go so bad. Well, just stopping having children is not enough at this point. We need to reduce the current population down, because if we don't, it's going to be catastrophic. Now, they have no scientific data to back this up. This is just, again, they're inventing new kinds of evil because they hate God and they want to be gods themselves.
And they want to ignore the existence of God. It's another form of saying, we're God, God is not God, we're smarter, we know better, we can fix this problem, God can't. Because he doesn't exist, or he's just incompetent.
Right. Switzerland was in the news last week where what did they say here? Switzerland's Supreme Court rules parents have no rights to homeschool their kids.
Because we're done, and they know better. Leave it to the professionals.
Leave it to the satanic government that wants and needs your children so they can indoctrinate them so that your children will grow up believing the government and the state is God. That's what they want. Mm-hmm. Same thing with climate change and everything else we're going to talk about.
And so what about Austin ISD.
Austin
That's
ISD.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Texas.
All right. Here in our
The conservative state of Texas.
Yeah. Texas School District, which is the Austin Independent Public School District, to teach middle schoolers, about sodomy and how to put on condoms. So we kind of put these last two stories together. Of course, one's Switzerland, one's Austin, different parts of the world. I get that.
The ideology.
But the ideology of, no, you're not allowed to homeschool your kids. They have to come to public school. And while they're at public school, we're going to teach them about sodomy and putting on condoms.
All of this, every one of these articles, it can be in Switzerland, it can be in Austin, but it's an ideology. There's a spirit behind the ideology. It's anti-God, it's anti-Christ, it's anti-the Bible. It's a constant idea and thrust of people that have bought into this to say the Bible is not the authority.
Yeah.
Because God is authoritative. He is all authority. He's given us the scriptures to reveal to us his authority over us. And man is saying no to the authority of the Bible.
Notice what's going on right now. That's what we were talking right before the show started. I don't even know what to call this. Recent wave. Because I don't think anything is new under the sun, but what I believe is somewhat new is this certain particular group of people. And I'm not talking about classic liberalism. I'm talking about radical leftism. That's what I'm talking about here. These particular people are combining every godless ideology they can possibly think of and building this platform of utter depravity, and they're promulgating and putting this stuff out there as either scientific fact, law, all this, and it's just, none of it's been proven by science. Climate change has not been proven by science. Or particular orientations as far as sexual desire has never been proven by science. All it is a bunch of heart issues. It's sin. It's people wanting to get rid of God because they don't want to be held accountable to a God who's holy and just, and they want to make themselves God.
They're as if the Bible's right, that they are inventors of evil. So they're taking all this evil and they're trying to invent more forms of it.
And that perfect example, we joke about it all the time, but AOC.
Yeah.
Like she writes this Green New Deal, and the thesis of it is, hey, the cows are farting. Mm-hmm. We need to do something about the cow farts.
And we're going to stop airplanes from flying.
And so the eventual outcome is we have 11,000 scientists come together saying we need to battle climate change through population control.
If we just catechized children if we wouldn't have stopped doing that, some of these idiots wouldn't be out there running their mouth off. Think about this. My son, who's 3 years old, knows who created everything. Now, does he know it in his heart? No. But he has it in his mind. He knows it. He can repeat it. Hopefully it gets to his heart. But the Bible teaches that God is the God of climate. He's the God of climate.
Yeah.
So he's the God of every person that's born. And so all of this is a form in which we say he is not, they're trying to say he's not God. He cannot be God over this climate. Because surely if he was, he wouldn't be letting it go the direction it's going. As if he's not good, as if he's not wise, or they don't view it as a judgment against them, which is what the Old Testament proves, that God used all over the place. He used climate, he used droughts, he used storms, he used all of that to judge people.
Look, yeah, and that's the point. Like, the climate's changing. It's always been changing. It never remains the same. Having said that, this idea that man, or this, within the next decade or two, we're going to see catastrophic consequences because of man-made climate change is foreign to actual science.
Not one of those 11,000 scientists are going to offer themselves up on this altar of climate change.
Yeah, as far as the population control goes.
They're not going to be the first ones in line.
Yeah. They're not only are they advocating stop having children, yes, they are advocating for that, but they're advocating for we need to reduce the current population we have right now. Those who hate God love death. I mean, it's just, there's example after example of this. Another article I saw this week was evidently more than a third of millennials believe that communism is a good idea.
Or some form of it, Marxism, socialism.
Yeah, and
They're
so,
all the same.
again, what is the basis for communism is Marxism. Okay, here's how it goes. The basis for socialism is communism. The basis of communism is Marxism. The basis of Marxism is godlessness. I'm going to be God. So again, it just, anything that removes God from the picture is being promoted, encouraged, and celebrated in the vast majority of the current culture.
And what's also equally frustrating and annoying is these same people are on their high horse as superior to the rest of us. That they're somehow more spiritual, more intelligent, more caring, more compassionate, more understanding than all of these things. I mean, they would say that they're more compassionate than God is, because they're concerned about these things.
These people that are on their moral high horse, right, about socialism, communism. We need to do it. It makes it more fair for everyone. You don't have these CEOs making all this money and all the peasants down here barely scraping by. Well, let's see. Stalin. 62 million dead under his reign because of his ideas. Hitler, 21 million dead. Mao, 49 million dead. And these are all give and take. We don't know how many. The point is millions and millions and millions of people, over hundreds of millions, have been murdered, put to death because of a Marxist, communist, socialist ideology that says, no, you're not allowed to have worship.
And it's amazing the pride of man to think that that they have the capability to figure all this stuff out, to straighten up all the injustices and ills and climate change and everything in our culture, that they can do it. They have the power, the wisdom, the full understanding, all of it.
Yeah.
They're trying to be God. That's exactly what they're doing. But the reality is they're depraved men who don't have any of that. And what we're getting is depraved people in charge of running the society and the culture.
You know who's outdone Stalin, Hitler, and Mao? Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood.
63 million dead under her.
Who was a racist.
Yeah. Her whole idea was to lower the population of black people.
Right.
That's why she started Planned Parenthood.
And so what we're talking about is just the fruit and evidence of depravity. Okay, this is where depravity gets you. This is where godless ideology gets you. This is where a lack of and I'll say this. This is where the church has to go back to the scriptures and say, how then do we fix this? Some of it can't ever be fixed. Some of it, okay? But God has given us remedy for the depravity of man. He's given us Christ. The power, the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. The 11,000 scientists that are saying these ridiculous things need Christ. AOC needs Jesus, right? Those 1/3 millennials, they need to be born again.
Yeah.
Not so that we can keep capitalist America. That's not what I'm talking about. However, that's a more biblical form, right, than what we are used to. What other articles did we have?
2 Disney employees are among 17
Yeah.
arrested in child pornography.
They need Christ. The only person who's going to deliver people from child pornography is Jesus. Not some program that helps them with their sex addiction. Which is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you take language like that, you're reducing the weight of the sin. No. You're a creep, a sicko, and you are a pedophile. That's what you are. It's utterly ridiculous. I'm yelling.
He's yelling again. At the end of the day, like that, whether you're an advocate for human-made catastrophic climate change, whether you're advancing everything you can. Another one is GLAAD calls for 20% of primetime TV series actors and actresses to be LGBTQ people by 2025. I mean, there's just a plethora of things. Like, all of it comes down to the depravity of the person, the human. And when you have a bunch of depraved people sharing these ideologies, and then they're going to team up together, and then you just create this giant soup of depravity, and you end up with thousands of people saying we need to combat this with human population control.
In some sense, I feel like there's a competition between them.
Yeah, to see how ridiculous we can be.
Right. And how fast can I heap up more condemnation and wrath from God?
And I'm convinced that many of these people that are promoting these ideas, especially when it comes to politicians, they don't believe them themselves.
Barack Obama just bought a mansion on the east coast of this country. By the way, which is the same east coast that's supposed to be underwater in a certain amount of years.
Yeah. So one of the movies we like to watch at the house is Nacho Libre. It's just funny. It's very Catholic, and it's not theologically accurate at all. But it's a clean movie for the most part, and it's funny, right? Get that corn out of my face. It's great. One of the previews. When was this movie made? I don't even remember. Like 15 years ago? Well, one of the previews on that is Al Gore promoting his documentary coming up, and he says within 10 years, there'll be no ice left in Antarctica or one of the other. I'm like, hey, that's wrong.
Isn't it funny, though, that they go to one part of the world and say the ice is melting, and fail to go to the other part of the world where the ice is increasing? So And they're all hypocrites. They're all flying. To make that movie, Al Gore flew all over the world in his plane that he says is bad for the environment.
Yeah. But anyway, so these guys don't even believe themselves. I'm just convinced they don't even believe themselves, but they know that it's going to fire up a certain demographic of people. They'll vote their way because there are people that do believe this stuff out there, but they have to pretend they believe it. And you have like an AOC who goes completely insane. I don't know if she believes it or not. But she's got people that vote for her.
Listen, she said in 10 years we're going to make all of the buildings in this country green. In 10 years.
Yeah. You want to destroy a nation? See, here's the problem, people. Ideas have consequences. And worldviews are a collection of ideas. Our children's worldviews start getting developed early in life. Like you said, your son Amos, who's just turned 3, will tell you God created the heavens and the earth. Right? Now, can he flesh that out? No. But he knows that God created the heavens and the earth. That's why the government wants our kids. They want to start shaping and molding their ideas and their worldviews. And to someday, this is where we end up, people. People have been indoctrinated with a secularist, humanist, atheistic, godless worldview from the time they were in kindergarten. Right? They go to school all day long and they're hit with this worldview that's anti-God. Then they either go to daycare for a few more hours till mom and dad are off work, or they're in extracurricular activities like sports or something like that. And then they finally get home around 5:30 or 6 in the evening. And what do? They may have dinner together, which lasts 20 or 30 minutes. But I'd say a lot of families don't even do that. They all grab their plates and go do their own thing. And then they watch the Disney Channel or MTV until they go to bed. They get up the next day and they do the same thing again. And just, we've lost the family because I'm telling you, it's not that people do this on purpose, do this consciously, but that we get in these routines of life. We go about our daily routines. Before you know it, we're going to bed at night and we're waking up the next day to do it all again. And our children are just... Listen, here's the problem. Because parents are failing to shape and mold the worldview of their children, secular society and culture has stepped in and said, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it.
But it goes back to the Bible, again, what you're saying. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand. They shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house. And how can you do that?
So you need to make a commitment and the effort to invest in your children, to teach them the biblical worldview, teach them the Bible, have scripture with them.
Do practical things like get great theological scriptural music in your car if you have to get them to school. You're driving them, they're listening to those things.
And we're not talking about KISS FM. I'm sorry, we're talking about solid children's Christian music.
And pour it into them. Catechize your children. I am an advocate for catechism. People are like, well, that's an old thing. It kind of sounds Catholic-y or whatever. That's ignorant. Look at church history.
Yeah.
All the main denominations have had a catechism for their children. It's a form of question and answer to get doctrine into your children. I am a proponent of indoctrinating.
Yes. All education is indoctrination.
And I want it to be the scriptures that get in my children's head, not something else.
I'll even promote something here. Theology. Yeah, I think y'all have them. Theology is a book by Marty Marchowski. I'm sure I
just butchered
his last name. It's basically a systematic theology for kids. Buy it. It's great. There's also a CD, music CD, that goes along with that. And it's also systematic theology through song. It's written for kids.
Grace and Truth books have kids' books.
Yeah.
Reformation Heritage has Christian kids' books. Get every one of R.C. Sproul's books for kids. I love them. I like to read. They give amazing word pictures. You know, the priest in the dirty clothes, right? The king in the poisoned cup. These are phenomenal ways to teach you. You are lazy if you're not teaching your kids, because it is so easy to do today. It's not hard. It's all been done for you.
Hey, Carl, don't let us sit here and we're not up on our high horse right here, because sometimes
because we fail epically. I do. I need Christ to forgive me for my lack of all of this, because I fall short of His glory. I fall short of doing this the way that I want to do it, that I ought to do it. But it still needs to be said.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep up with the world if we're spending an hour or so with our kids in a 24-hour day. It's hard to do it. It's hard to keep up. You know, they are developing a worldview, regardless of what. I mean, they are now. And all these ideas that they have about things are what creates this worldview. We need to be the ones that are telling our kids what to believe, why we believe it, because they are developing a worldview, and it's either going to be a God-honoring and biblical worldview, or it's not.
And so I want to close with this thought. Of all these things that we talked about, all these things that we see out in the culture, the scriptures would tell us that what we're seeing actually is the wrath of God being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Romans 1:18.
Yep.
But before Romans 1, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. All of this needs the gospel. All these people involved. Because I told someone the other day that it's not as if God's wrath is against sin that's outside of people. It's personal. Sin exists because people exist. The people at Austin ISD need the gospel, because it's the gospel that saves from the wrath of God.
Right.
If this is the wrath of God being revealed, all this iniquity that we're seeing that's running rampant, the gospel of Jesus Christ, He is the one that absorbed all of that wrath for us, so that we can turn, repent of our sins, put our trust and faith in Jesus Christ, and be saved, Romans 5:9, from the wrath of God.
Again, we hope this has been encouraging for you. Try not. It's got a bunch of bad news this week.
Yeah. But you have the gospel.
Yeah, you have the gospel, and it is the power of
Yes.
God, salvation for all who believe. So go out and share it. You know, again, the culture is in a state of anti-God. Many politicians are in a state of anti-God.
How rude.
And
Professional.
you You know, so we need to do everything we can to make sure that our children are being taught the things that need to be taught, because, amen, the culture is out there, they're geared up, and where we are lazy, they're not.
My prayer and CA's prayers are this, this strengthens and sanctifies saints, saves sinners, and ultimately glorifies God. So, amen.
Thanks for watching. God bless. We'll see you next week.